Welcome to Brookline Hub In-Depth. I'm your host, Harvey Bravman. We're here with Elizabeth Boen, who is the Executive Director of the Brookline Food Pantry. Welcome, Elizabeth, to the show.
Thank you, Harvey. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, really excited to have you. I know there's a lot of news, new news for the pantry, and I think it's important that people know about it. So the biggest news, right, is move to United Parish on
That is
Harvard.
correct. That is correct, yes. After decades at St. Paul's Church, we have moved our central location to the United Parish Church at 210 Harvard Street.
And what has that been like? Is the move complete? Was it, I mean, moving is hard, no matter for just people.
Yes,
Moving
yes.
from an apartment to another. This must have been
Right.
crazy.
This was quite an effort, most importantly, because we wanted to do it without having to close down the pantry at all. So last week we were open our usual hours of Wednesdays and Thursdays at our St. Paul's Church location. So Thursday night, we had a wonderful crew of volunteers come in and pack up all of the food that was left at the church and empty all of the cabinets and have that food ready for moving. The Brookline Police Department came by on Thursday evening and transported all of our refrigerator and freezer foods over to the Heat School for safekeeping for the evening. Since we had to unplug the refrigerators and freezers for so many hours. And then Friday, we had a wonderful professional moving company. Two guys in a truck are their name, and they're very generous to us and give us very discounted rates anytime we use them. So they came and moved all of our refrigerators, freezers, cabinets, racks, all of the food, and again, a wonderful crew of volunteer worked endlessly Friday, Saturday, and Monday and Tuesday so that we would be open for our pantry hours this past Wednesday. So it was a lot of work, but I give so much thanks to our staff and volunteers who made it really happen very smoothly. And I'm happy to say we were ready to be open on Wednesday and Thursday. So it's great. I think this is going to be a very convenient spot for so many of our clients, especially we have a lot of clients who walk in the neighborhood. And United Parish is a little bit more central to Coolidge Corner for them, so they'll have a shorter distance to come. We're also closer to the C line now, the Green Line C stop right in Coolidge Corner. That makes it a little bit shorter walk for folks who want to take the T. And as well, there is a bus route that goes right by the church. So we hope that that's convenient for some of our clients as well.
I remember before this was, I think, when John Margolis was the executive director. Oh wow, I'm dating myself. But, we used to help out a lot, and we would have put together canisters that just said donate to the Brookline Food Pantry. And we had students from the Brookline Literacy Partnership at the high school, and I would drive them around and they would collect from the canisters and made sure no one messed with the canisters. And then we had a dinner at the fireplace when it existed in Washington Square, and we raised a lot of money. And I remember people putting in checks into the canisters because they said they didn't really know where the food pantry was. And so maybe, or didn't know at that time how to give. So maybe also being in a more visible spot, or a spot with higher traffic, maybe that will help in terms of people donating. That's a hint to anyone who's walking around Coolidge Corner right now thinking, what could I do next? What could I buy next? Well, maybe you could buy some meals by going to the food pantry and leaving a check off there.
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
and thank you to the Brookline Police Department and for their volunteerism, and to two guys in the truck for giving a break on their rates to the food pantry. Thank
That's
you.
right. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
Tell me about what the impact that the pandemic had on the pantry, on the staff, on the clients. What do you remember when you first knew that this surrealism was real?
Yes, I sure do, Harvey. Um, it was an incredible impact in many ways. Most importantly is there were just so many people I feel living in Brookline who were really on the border line between being able to make ends meet and having trouble making ends meet. And sadly, the pandemic changed that for so many people so that they no longer had enough money to cover all of their expenses. So prior to the pandemic, we were seeing about 150 to 175 families per week at our pantry locations. In March 2020, when we saw everything change, when we saw people losing their jobs because of restaurants and stores and businesses closing, when we saw children staying home from school and not getting their free lunches, rather immediately, our numbers went to about 600 to 700 families per week needing our help.
Wow.
So that was an incredible jump. And really, really just hearing the stories of so many families who, as I say, were really just making ends meet. And this changed everything for them. They no longer could make ends meet. And unfortunately, that has stayed true for so many of them. Our numbers have not gone down at all in the last 16 months. I feel a lot of people are now doing better. Many of them have gone back to work. Thankfully, so many restaurants and businesses have opened, and so many of them were able to send their children back to school, which again was very important. However, we must remember for so many people, even missing a few weeks or a month of pay can really affect their household. It can take a very long time to catch up at that point. So I think we are just so happy that, so many new clients have known of us. So many people have told friends or neighbors who might be in need about us, because I think what can happen is that when a client has a pile of bills to pay and really needs to try and keep up with them, we don't want people going to the grocery store and not purchasing items that they really need for themselves, for their children, for their parents. We want them to know they can come to us and get nutritious foods for free. And we're thrilled that so many people are doing that now. We hope everybody who needs us will come. And we have not closed down one shift or one day of throughout this pandemic, and we won't. We will stay open every day and every shift for people who need to come to us. So I think that was really the biggest change, was the number of clients we were seeing. The second biggest change, of course, we remember when COVID started, how nervous everybody was about how this could affect their health. And we lost 95% of our regular volunteers within a matter of weeks in March 2020. And I just must give a shout out to the teenagers of the community of Brookline, because without them, we would never have been able to stay open every day and every hour that we were used to being open. I think a lot of the teenagers felt a little bit safer, when we first were hearing the news about older people really having a hard time contracting COVID, and people with health issues and things like that. So we had the teenagers come out by dozens from Brookline High and from other schools all around, private schools around the area. And they really saved the pantry without, without getting too dramatic. Without their help, we couldn't have stayed open all the time that we did. And again, serving 600 to 700 families a week was no easy task. But these students jumped right in and did anything we asked of them. Thankfully, a lot of them are strong and have much better backs than than me and other adults who are helping out. But I do always want to just say to the community, this was just such a positive outcome to a horrible end to their school year, and they really came through for us.
I thank you for mentioning that. We Brookline Hub, we have the Brookline Youth Awards and celebrate the accomplishments of young people. And so many times those accomplishments are about sacrifice. And a lot of times the students who are doing the sacrifice are the ones that have faced their own challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And not only address their own challenges of perhaps being in situations where they've experienced food insecurity, or maybe they're just this close from being in that situation, and helping out others. It's just really
Yes.
wonderful to hear. And
Yeah.
they want to do real work, not just what's going to get them a little extra credit at school or something.
Mm-hmm.
They want to make a difference.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Harvey. The students who came to us and are still coming to us, I was working with a bunch of recent Brookline High graduates today and a couple of students still in high school. And absolutely, their shifts at the pantry are 2 to 3 hours long, and they want to be kept busy the whole time. I think, sometimes there is the stereotype of teenagers standing around staring at their phone all day. Well, I'll tell you, the students who help us, their phone doesn't come out. They are lifting 50-pound bags of carrots and potatoes. They're running up and down stairs to get items that we need. They're politely serving the clients and asking what else they can do to help. The stereotype could not be more wrong, in my view.
That's a great news and great to hear. I've written about this story before. It's my own personal journey with the food pantry, and it was years ago, and I learned about the courage it takes. Fortunately for me, it wasn't a situation where I had to where I needed food, but I was helping somebody who was a young filmmaker, and I was an executive producer for his film, and we were showing it at the Coolidge, and I came up with the idea to increase attendance, that people could get in bringing donations to the food pantry, on
I
top
remember
of.
that.
And the next morning, I thought I was, some kind of hero or something. And, the Coolidge called and said, well, we've got this, big storage area full of food. You got to get rid of it, so that we could do the theater's business. And I remember calling the food pantry, and at the time, John Margolis was the executive director, and they had less resources than you do now. And
Right.
I said, well, go pick up the food. It's at the theater. And
Yeah.
he said, we can't, because
Yeah.
we don't have a vehicle. And it was really hot out, and I had a meeting, and I had my khakis and dress shirt on, and I just washed my car and loaded up my car, and I was soaking wet with sweat and going to the food pantry, and there was no one there to help me bring the food in. And so I had to bring it in, and I was getting kind of pissed because I thought I had done my good, my good service. And I saw people waiting in line, and most of them looked like me. They didn't look like who at that time I would envision, needing a food pantry.
Mhm.
And I think this was around the time of the bank crashing in 2008. I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure it's about that time. And I remember seeing people, instead of wanting to get as much food as they could, being concerned that they might be taking too much.
Mhm.
And the pantry area was small, the storage area was larger, but where people actually got it, and the volunteers would explain to them that there was more food than what they were seeing,
Mhm. Right.
and that the people that were in line were going to be able to get food. But um, the grace that the volunteers had, but also the people who were getting the food.
Mhm.
And I realized that you can't be, there's nothing that you could do that would be braver and show more courage than to stand in line and get food because you know what's best for your family, even though
Mhm.
it puts a dent in your ego. Um,
Right. Right.
and so for all those people out there that are in that situation, I look up to you. It's not just we're glad to help you. It's like you're showing courage, and I'm sure there are still people out there who could use the services of a food pantry that don't because of their ego, and
Right.
and
Right.
it's a lot. People
Yeah,
work their whole lives and they don't do it so that they can get handouts.
that's
They
right.
want to be in control, and
That's
so
right. Yeah, we absolutely find that's true, Harvey. That, number one, people are so gracious, and thank you, our clients who come to the pantry, for everything we give them. Um, we really don't find people taking advantage and coming more often than they need at all. Many of them, in fact, skip weeks that they feel they're doing okay. And yeah, nobody tries to take too much. It's everyone is very kind and generous. And I would really hope that anyone who might watch this today, or if it's not for yourself, if you have a friend or a neighbor who could be in need, we really do want to help. And we treat everybody very respectfully who comes to us. And we want them to know that, especially now, in these hard times, we're not asking anyone for any kind of proof of why they need help. If they come to us and tell us they need help, that's fine for us.
if you could tell us, and I know that seems like an overly simplistic question, but what is food insecurity?
That's a great question, Harvey, and I think it means different things to so many people. I think specifically to our community, I find there's a large group of elderly people in our community who sadly just can't make ends meet. They've been retired for many years, and I think many of them were very frugal when they worked. They saved what they could. They've done the best they can, but we all know, the money you can get from Social Security or a small pension just does not cover the costs that it takes to live in Brookline in 2021. So I'm happy to say we're able to help so many of our elderly neighbors who do come to us on a regular basis looking for, especially the more expensive, healthy foods that are so difficult to purchase on a budget in the grocery store, like fresh produce and lean meats, lean fish, all kinds of things like that. Nicer breads and pastries even that we get donated very generously from many of the supermarkets and bakeries around here. And so that is a large population. The elderly group is a large population of our clients. I would also say that the same is true for many people within our community who work at lower paying jobs, either minimum wage or, you know, again, certainly you can be doing better than minimum wage. You could be making 20 or $22 an hour, working full time, working more than full time, and still to be able to pay rent in Brookline and pay the rest of your bills and take care of children is, or your elderly parents, is impossible. So we do have a large number of families who come to us for help every week. And then I would say a smaller population, but one that we do see are either people in college, clients who are in college, or they could be graduate students or recently graduated from university. And again, most of them are working in a lower paying job. A lot of them have stifling student debt, which takes up quite a bit of their income, and they come to us for help when they need us. So I think in our community, those are really the people who are suffering from food insecurity. And I think to each of them, that just really means they're not sure if the money they have is going to allow them to buy enough food to be comfortable week to week. Maybe they can buy some food, but to be able to have enough food to eat 3 meals a day, probably not. So again, we're thrilled that they know of us and that they come to us for help so that we can fill in the gaps where they might be lacking in food. I remember, Harvey, a few years ago, I did an interview and there was a woman from the Brookline Senior Center on on the panel with me. And it was just one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever heard, that she told us they had interviewed a few hundred people, and these were all senior citizens, and 30% of them replied that at least one day in the last month, they had no food to eat in their home. And to hear that this is happening in Brookline, one of the most affluent communities in the United States, was so heartbreaking to us that we really went out of our way after hearing that to make sure that elderly people all over knew of us. So I think that to me really is one of the definitions of food insecurity that stuck in my heart and in our mission, is that it's not okay for anybody to have to miss a day of eating. It's just not okay. So even if they think they're doing all right and they can eat most days, we don't want anyone to feel that they should skip a day or two, and and when they have money to go grocery shopping again, they will. So that's the kind of food insecurity we worry about and that we want to end in Brookline and all around.
Wow. I'm sure most doctors don't say that you should eat most days.
That's right. That's
Um,
right.
what what should someone do if at this moment or going to bed tonight they worry about how they're going to get enough food for the next few days for themselves, for their family,
Mhm.
um, or if they feel that there's someone, this I guess part two of the question, if they feel that there's maybe someone on their street, maybe a senior citizen,
Mhm.
um, that they feel might be in a situation that could use your help, what should they do?
Sure. Well, the number one thing, Harvey, is that we are open 4 days a week at 3 different locations. And anyone who needs help can come right to us any of those days. They don't have to sign up in advance or be registered in advance or anything like that. They can just come to the pantries. We are at 226 High Street in a BHA property on Tuesdays. We are at United Parish on Wednesdays and Thursdays. And then we are at 55 Egmont Street, also a Brookline Housing Authority building on Thursdays and Saturdays. So our hours are on our website. They can look those up and come anytime. Again, no pre-registering, no paperwork needed. They can sign up that day and get food that day. I feel if anybody feels they know a neighbor or someone who could use help and they're not sure how to help them, please feel free to reach out to us. Again, our phone number and our email address are right on our website. You can send us information about this person, whether you might want to be of help yourself, or if you'd like help reaching out to them, we can do that. We also have volunteers who speak several languages if there might be a language barrier to you trying to help this person. And also an important thing to realize is that we are making deliveries to people who feel they cannot make it to the pantry themselves. So we've been doing that since the start of COVID. And what we realize is that there really are people who, still should not be coming out in public in groups of people. And there are also people with, either some kind of physical ailments or other health ailments that make it difficult for them to come to the pantry. So you can sign up to have food delivered to your home, and we do that several days a week. So we would work with you on a convenient day and time to have that food come right to your home or your neighbor's home. So again, thank you for mentioning that. And I hope anyone who needs our help or could feel that they could help a neighbor or friend will take one of those steps.
Thank you. If there's a senior citizen on your street, and even if you think that they might have enough family support or other support, it's not a bad idea to ask them, are you getting what you need? Is there
That's right.
anything that we can do to help?
That's right.
Maybe you can pick up something. Maybe money isn't the issue. Maybe just
Mhm.
getting around is the issue.
That's
And
right.
you can pick up something for them or just in some way help out. Sometimes even getting to the mailbox is difficult,
That's right.
depending on how that's set up in your neighborhood. Um,
Right.
I'm thinking, are there any questions that I should be asking you right now that I haven't asked you?
Well, I guess I would just like to reiterate that, we are open all 4 days at these pantries, that we have not stopped following COVID safety protocols that the town health department and the CDC have set in place for us. So when you come to the pantry, everything is done outdoors. In good weather and bad, we were outdoors all winter long serving our clients. So you don't have to be worried about coming indoors or being in a crowded room or anything like that. Everything is handed out outdoors, and all of our volunteers are wearing masks. So I want everyone to feel comfortable in that sense. I guess I'd also just like to say a lot of thanks to the community as a whole for all of the donations we have received in this past year. I think a lot of people realized they probably saw food insecurity as an issue. It was on the national news and certainly the local major stations quite a bit. You could read about it in any news magazine or newspaper. And I think it really opened many citizens' eyes to the fact that even in this land of plenty, so many people are suffering from food insecurity. I think the pandemic really opened their eyes. And I really, I say two things. In addition to all of the teenage volunteers who came out and kept the pantry open, I want to extend the same thanks to the generosity of the Brookline community. There is no way we could continue to have served hundreds and hundreds of households every single week, and delivered to people and kept up our Brookline Thrives weekend backpack program for the kids in school. You can imagine how our budget grew very quickly. And honestly, the generosity of our community rose to the occasion. We had no problems giving away the same amount of food that we always have to our clients, and just keeping up every single week with that amount of food. So I have a sincere thanks for everybody in the community who donated to keep our funds going.
We may call on you again. Unfortunately, things can always get worse, and maybe not, we may get this pandemic under control, but our economy has been, held up a little bit by Congress and the US. The feds have come in and bolstered, multi-trillion-dollar packages to help support most of us during a tough time, but that might not happen the next time, and we have to share a little bit to make sure that all of us can get by. And nonprofits are very important to the health of our community, but some of the nonprofits really fulfill moral imperatives, and the Brookline Food Pantry is one of those. This is a moral imperative. Who is your neighbor? Is it the people on your street? Is it the people on your block? Is it the people in your community, the people in your state? So
right. Yeah.
Thank you for your service to our community, especially during the pandemic, but always and for years now. Elizabeth, you're doing a great job. And
thank you, Harvey. I appreciate your kind words and your thoughts. I completely agree with you that this is a moral imperative. There is nothing more important than making sure people are well fed so that they can continue with their lives and get back to school, get back to work, stay healthy, have one less thing to worry about in this, in this life of ours that gives us all plenty of worries. Where your next meal is coming from should be the least of your problems. And I'll just say thank you for the team, because I am just such a tiny part of what happens at the food pantry. Without my staff, without the board of directors who work tirelessly to help me, raising funds and making all kinds of work happen in our community to keep the ball rolling. And again, the over 200 volunteers we have, some of whom come several times a week, some of whom come once a week, some of whom we call in an emergency to fill in. Without them, we couldn't do any of this. So the generosity of all the community and the volunteers is it's just incredible. We live in a very special community.
We really do. And
yeah.
For those of you who want to know more about the Brookline Food Pantry, brooklinefoodpantry.org. Write that down, brooklinefoodpantry.org. If you can't spell it, ask a friend if they could spell it for you, but brooklinefoodpantry.org. Please do what you can to help. Thank you so much for being our guest, Elizabeth. Looking forward to seeing you at the food pantry soon. And to all of you at home, see you next week.
Thank you, Harvey. Nice to be with you today.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Danielle Myers of ADW Video Productions and BrooklineHub.com. BrooklineHub.com is a 501c3 nonprofit online publication dedicated to community building through local reporting and events. Brookline Facing Civil Rights was produced by our founder, Harvey Bravman. The film is about the experiences of African Americans who helped break the wall of segregation that existed in Brookline before the civil rights laws were passed in the 1960s. Last year, the film sold out the Coolidge Corner Theater and included a panel discussion on inclusivity. You can stream the film and the discussion on BrooklineHub.com in exchange for a donation to the Brookline Community Foundation's Safety Net Fund. You can also stream Soul Witness, a film that features interviews with Brookline Holocaust survivors conducted 30 years ago, on soulwitness.org. For the last 11 years, Harvey has been interviewing outstanding teens as part of an event held at the Coolidge called the Brookline Youth Awards. The Brookline Youth Awards are an opportunity for Brookline residents to hear about the character, challenges, and dreams of its young people, as well as adults dedicated to their success through the power and intimacy of video interviews.